Hey everybody, it's time for a special installment of Ambient Alchemy, and I'm going to be talking all about Jupiter's move into Libra and what a lot of the next 13 months are going to look like with some very special angles that it's going to be making with other planets in the sky. And this is kind of a big deal because it's been a little while since Jupiter has interacted with planets such as Uranus, okay, or even Pluto in a negative sense, because there's going to be some squares going on there, or even Saturn, actually harmonious, angles and connections to Saturn. Jupiter's not going to be talking to Neptune as much anymore. And Jupiter in Libra is really actually going to bring a sense of peace, I think, to a lot of folks, because with Virgo energy, Jupiter has, this sense of let's fix things, let's work on correcting things, correcting imbalances. And sometimes when you have situations where people are extra sensitive, or in this case, the collective is extra sensitive, in a lot of ways, a lot of the collective is kind of in a heightened state of alarm. It's almost like a heightened state of awareness, but it's a state of alarm. That corrective energy can seem fairly disruptive. It's like, okay, I know you're kind of try and come and fix this thing, but I'm a little sensitive right now, so it's really kind of making it feel worse, even though you're trying to make it better. And Jupiter did make a lot of things better when it was in Virgo. There were a lot of breakthroughs as far as, medical technology were concerned, and that's what Jupiter in Virgo is all about. It's also a lot of breakthroughs in terms of alterations to how we handle some of our, our opportunity to serve our fellow man, whether it comes to civil rights, whether it comes to equal rights. People starting to understand a bit more of that. But again, with Jupiter in Virgo, there's sort of a less of a gentle touch. We'll just put it that way. And Libra is definitely more of a gentle touch type of sign. And with Jupiter in Libra, we're also going to see, global trends leaning towards that Libran energy, which can actually be very favorable for a lot of people, because this is talking about connection, this is talking about harmony, this is talking about relationships. I think that over the next 12 to 13 months, we might be seeing a bit of a decline in our reliance on, say, digital media to connect to people. Okay, we may be taking more time for more interpersonal activity. People are going to be coming out of their bubbles, and that's kind of a big deal. That's kind of what Jupiter through the adult signs has been all about. Ever since Jupiter moved into Leo 2 years ago, people have been being drawn out of their comfort zones, out of their protective shields, out of their controlled environments. And with Jupiter in Leo, it was like it was really brand new. It was kind of even scary. It kind of felt like there was no boundaries, because Leo's this extremely exuberant, extroverted, and flamboyant kind of sign, so it was like really in your face. And with Virgo, it was almost like saying, now that you're out of your comfort zone, you can't get back in. Your comfort zone is under construction. So it was kind of like, okay, so I got freaked out when I got shoved out there by Leo, but now Virgo's saying I can't go back in. And now we have this nice balancing opportunity going on with Jupiter in Libra. One of the things to also pay attention to with Jupiter in Libra is that, we're not only dealing with Libra as we look at it in Western astrology, but we're also looking at Libra as we look at it in Eastern astrology. So there's a very strong element of metal in the next year. And metal is all about securing things. Metal is all about cutting to the core of issues that are maybe toxic, maybe unhealthy, to relationships and to collections of people. And there's also going to be a huge focus on fairness, balance, equity, equanimity. And this is going to level the playing field a lot, because, there's been a lot of divisiveness, especially the last 2 years, with this agitation from Saturn and Neptune squaring each other. People are getting paranoid. Even so-called spiritual enlightened people are giving into fear, they're giving into prejudice, they're kind of trying to have it both ways. And a lot of this energy, again, that Saturn-Neptune square is luckily coming to an end this week as well. We've got the final clash on the 10th of September, and then they move away from each other, and they will not interact in a negative way for a long time. Okay, but this Jupiter energy is also coming in just in time to cleanse that, to clear it, to sort of, again, where do we need to understand fair is fair? Where are we treating people as equals? Where are we treating ourselves as equals? Where are we needing to pay attention to the fact that there's no need to feel elevated by trying to elevate yourself above somebody, or to put somebody on a pedestal and say I'm not elevated until I'm like somebody. All right, there's understanding the balance in your own divinity, understanding that you are an equal and divine being here. And Jupiter in Libra is, again, we're also going back to fairness. And so this is going to be a tremendous time of understanding where to give responsibility away that is not ours to take. Okay, whether it's responsibility for other people's actions, responsibility for other people's decisions, their choices, where we're not meant to be misappropriating other people's emotions. But we're also making sure to, again, with the other hand, take back responsibility that is ours. Take back responsibility with our emotions and how we conduct ourselves in all of our interpersonal relationships. And making sure that everyone has theirs, their goods and their responsibility. Okay, and so this is going to be a huge lesson, and depending on where it falls in your chart, you're going to be learning this lesson there. Okay, so for instance, it's going into my 12th house, so this has a lot to do with my past. Okay, this is going to have a lot to do with my past, maybe my family, generations prior, any kind of generational family issues that trickle down, understanding what is and is not my responsibility, giving away that which is not, and letting it be where it needs to be, but also taking what is mine if I have let it go to something or somebody else. Yours might be in a financial house. Yours might be in a love area. Yours might be in an area that talks about your career or your school life. Okay, so there's a big focus on that there. Understanding where to kind of put things back into balance is to put everything also in its proper place. There's also a great need with Jupiter in Libra to be focusing on honesty, open, honest communication. And, you know, because Libra is a cardinal sign, it may be a time where we start seeing people sharing information about themselves that we didn't see coming, but it actually is the truth. You know, because sometimes on our journeys we tend to stretch the truth, or we kind of say, this is my new truth, I'm speaking my new truth, that's my old truth. Well, that's okay, but if it's still inside you and you haven't let it go, that's also your truth. And that's going to be happening with everybody. And so it's important to also understand the need for some radical acceptance during this time. Okay? When we talk about things like fairness, acceptance and fairness are the same thing in this case. All right? Being able to see, okay, this is acceptable and this is acceptable. Tolerance, okay, is also going to be a big thing. I think that we're going to see an even heavier diminishing of social prejudices, you know, whether it's about race, whether it's about gender, sexual orientation, religion. People are going to finally evolve out of the muck that would keep them in the fear, in the prejudice, in the bigotry. And, you know, even if they might feel they themselves are processing old feelings, you know, issues like that, they're going to understand that those are old feelings and those aren't really real to the present. They're real on the inside, but not to the present. And then it'll help people to come and stay present with their emotions. Because Jupiter in Libra is also about staying present with your emotions, not putting off the processing until it gets too big. You know, emotions come with an interest rate. What we don't deal with actually turns into something bigger and more difficult to deal with the longer we wait to deal with it. You know, so we don't want the interest rate to rise on those kinds of things. So that's where the balance and the exchange comes in. And that's a huge deal because with Jupiter opposed to Neptune from Virgo this last year, twice, you know, Jupiter was already trying to do that, but that Neptune energy, Neptune's kind of been the, you know, I guess you could say the thorn in the sides of a lot of planets and a lot of people the last 2 years. Neptune's kind of been the culprit, you know, and with Jupiter opposed to Neptune, there was sort of like this, okay, well, yeah, we understand that's the right way to do it, but Neptune wants to do it the easy way, or the way that feels good, or the way that, like, you know, and something that feels good doesn't always necessarily mean it is good. And that's kind of the lesson that Neptune brings wherever it goes. So it's been having a hard time even getting started on that. Now that Jupiter is out of the way, not really making any serious or major aspects to Neptune, I think that message is going to come across a little bit more clearly. Jupiter's also going to be sextiling to Saturn in Sagittarius. We're going to see a lot of reformation, but also, again, a big change in the way we all interact. You know, I think that more people are going to be focusing on the home, on the homestead, but I also think that people are going to be able to connect with wider cultures. They're going to be more culturally integrative. And I think that a lot of people are going to be kind of finally bridging that, again, keeping the bubble down, keeping the controlled environment down. But again, this is much more interpersonal. This isn't like going online and, you know, and just having your accompaniment be a dime a dozen. This is actually forming stronger relationships, even at a distance. And this could be great for long-distance relationships as well, or long-distance business partnerships. We've also got Jupiter squaring Pluto a couple of times later this autumn, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, and then once again next spring. And this clash is kind of interesting because with Jupiter forming a pressure square to Pluto in Capricorn, again, it's talking about silly rules, silly laws. It's talking about silly traditions and being true and honest with yourself without being so committed to preserving laws and traditions that are simply artificial constructs. Okay? Because sometimes that happens. Sometimes people, like, they think, well, I'm following all the rules, therefore I deserve to get something right. Well, you know what? Sometimes you're following the rules, but that's actually going against your moral compass or spiritual law. And so it's time to be thinking about that as well. But I think that we're going to see a lot more good happening with this Jupiter in Libra now that it's safe out of the rays of Neptune. You know, out of the clumsying, dizzying kind of energy of Neptune. We're gonna finally see Jupiter get what it's been trying to get done the last year. Only it's gonna do it, I think, a little bit more softly. Maybe it was a bit too tough, a little bit too harsh. Again, that can be kind of difficult if a person's in a rough spot and they're, you know, they're feeling a bit more discourageable. This energy is definitely going to be a bit softer, but just as firm. All right? So I hope you guys found this special Jupiter discussion helpful. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. You know I appreciate it. And don't forget, guys, horoscopes are now bi-weekly. So your next week's horoscopes are already up if you want to go check them out. And they're combining tarot and astrology. And if you'd like to get a session, you can always follow the links below or go to integrativemysticism.com.